are back with the Dillan Show. Back with the Dillan Show. Today, first topic on the news. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody is talking about it. The news. It does seem like I've noticed this a lot. It's probably more since COVID. No one, you say good morning to people of any age, and they just look at you and keep going like they're getting like, oh gosh, that was close. like like they just avoided a freaking bird attack or something. Just whoop, swept that. Oh, that was close. But it's like you're just saying, oh, good morning. And I don't mean to say good morning to be just a happy person, everybody. I'm walking in, you're a weird person coming towards me and trying to lighten the mood a little bit. I'm like, good morning. I gotta, go into this place where I'm working. You're walking out weird and stuff. Good morning. And you just walk, oh, it's a good thing. Oh, that was, and so, whatever, you start seeing that. He started seeing that. And, it's a shame. It's something lost in the overall, just doggone humanity of it all. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? All right, coming up in the news. Jerry Jones fired up the media. This is really late reporting. Darn owner of the Cowboys, Mr. Jerry Jones, the Arkansas oil man himself, fired up the media last week. Talking about, well, I'll hire new people to ask me questions or something. If you wanna ask questions that actually matter, I'll just hire new people to ask me questions. Which begs, I don't know how their media stuff goes. I guess maybe that was their selected media, so he can select who asks him damn questions. Possibly, but I don't know. I ain't even criticizing Jerry. I think he should have gone harder. I should have gone harder on the media. You're darn right. If I'm paying you to butter me up, you better butter me up. If I'm paying you, what are they talking about? Oh, I'm paying you to butter me up. I'm gonna be the one to break that social media. I'm gonna get that likes. What? I'm gonna get them views on the dang TV clicker. Really? On Jerry? While he's paying you? The billionaire himself? Really? Really? Mr. Voted Bush two elections straight? Jerry? Really? What has he done? Besides try to run a team into the ground for the damn sport of doing it. And if you can't get behind that, well, shit, I don't know what you can't get behind. Bleep. We're going to bleep some of that out. Just a little bit aggressive, but moving on to the news. We didn't want to come out with this one and just report it in this fashion, but I'm afraid it must be said. It must be said for all. Tom Hanks, where has he been? Tom Hanks, like every movie he's in now, he's like animated or something, or they're doing that old Luke Skywalker age regression technology, and it is what it is. You gotta live with it. But every movie they're doing that, so you could just get the guy who played Gollum, Andy Serkis, get him out there, and he could play every character, and you pay him like a lot, a decent sum. Don't overcharge him or he won't come back. But you pay him to do the whole movie, do a whole Tyler Perry and Medea special, And you can do every movie like that with this technology, and really, that just ruins the whole point. You don't even know what you're seeing at the movies or anything because it's all post production. There ain't no vision to it. They just go out there. We're gonna shoot about a. Now, some TV shows and there's some decent films are different, but for the biggest, it's just a crapshoot. Just a just a crapshoot out in a field of crabs. Tom Hanks had been seen for a long time. There was actually rumors, and this is a QAnon special, so take it as you will, that Mr. Tom Hanks, well, he's flying his private jet around Spain and over there in Europe, and they intercepted him trying to, he was Mr. Epstein's friend type stuff with the evidence on him, with the young people with him or something like that. And he just done got caught in a foreign country, and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing, Mr. Hanks? I seen you in them movies, but you can't just be running around here with these, no name little kids." And he's just like, "Well, hey." And so then they called Interpol on him. Him and his, probably what I heard, significant other. And so they passed it on. Brought him to some Guantanamo Bay type thing. May have been the old Betsy herself, but brought him out, and they said, you either got to do something, or I really don't know what they told him, something, and then he came out and was like, "We're all over the world. We do, and we just," and some real evil stuff, and then anyways, they killed him or something, and he just was evil, and they killed him, and so Tom Hanks is dead, and his brother's out there cashing out off the face capturing, making Mr. Rogers films and Tom Hanks loves films where he's 20 years old. What the hell is that? But either way, next thing on the show. We got coming up a segment very dear to my own heart. A segment that is very true indeed. Basically the basics, where we get you the basics of basically anything. Basically, you're going to get the basics. The basics are coming around. You say, "I need to know a lot. I need to know so much." No, sir, you just need to know the basics. We're going to get you the basics. We're going to get you, basically, we're going to get you the basics. All right. Oh, right, this week on basically the basics. Tell you what, we got something pretty interesting. We had a guy flying from California. He done told us all about radio frequencies. And basically the basics tonight, we're going to go over just a little bit something about radio frequencies. And see, you might think, oh, the radio, that's that thing that my grandpa listens to. That's that thing that he puts on the car when we're driving. He don't know where the Bluetooth is. He done never found it. Well, I'll tell you what. The radio frequencies. That's what basically the basics is about tonight. Woo! Yeehaw! Alright. So, you're going to start at the basics when you do basically the basics. And we're just going to go from the start. Where the false science, what they'll tell you, Timothy 6:20, just the false science, and it's coming at you, and basically what they're gonna tell you is that a little guy named Heinrich Hertz. Well, Heinrich Hertz, he done proved the existence of radio. Waves in the late 1880s. He used a spark gap attached to an induction coil and a separate spark gap on a receiving antenna. When waves created by the sparks of the coil transmitter were picked up by the receiving antenna, well, wouldn't you believe it, sparks would jump its gap as well. That was a quote poorly read that I took somewhere off a simple Google search. You say, who invented radio? Well, they're just going to tell you old Heinrich Hertz. And that's why, probably where the electronic measurement of the hertz came from. I'm sure it's from this old dude or his bloodline. But Heinrich Hertz, that's what they're going to tell you. And then also an interesting fact about Heinrich Hertz, is he died. Well, they say Heinrich Hertz died. He died quite young. Probably around 40, though. But, for that age, hey, Nikola Tesla lived to be like in his 90s, and we'll get to him. But Heinrich Hertz, he died around his 40s, I'd say. And they say Heinrich Hertz's death. While the course of, and so he had this rare disease. It's rare. It's still, they don't know what triggers it. It's an event, an unoccurred event that could happen to any impersonable person, and they could receive a disease called Wegener's granulomatosis. So you got the Wegener's granulomatosis? Dang it. While the cause of Wegener's granulomatosis is unknown, research indicates that this autoimmune disorder is triggered by an event that results in inflammation of basically the damn bloods, which maybe you're going to get some blood clots. Maybe, your arteries just going to start clogging up. What event caused him to develop this disease? Could it have been overexposure to radio frequencies? I put in myself. Could it have been an overexposure of radio frequencies that gave him the event? If you look up this disease, they'll still tell you it's called Wegener's granulomatosis. There's an untriggered event that they still don't know what an event is that can give you this disease. But either way, you basically start getting inflamed blood, and it just ain't good for you. Inflamed blood, tell you what, that don't sound good. And so this guy invented radio frequency, and he got this. Could it have been him in the lab testing some stuff, and then all of a sudden he came up with the Wegener's granulomatosis? I would hope not. But, ladies and gentlemen, only God can tell. And hopefully one day we'll all get to ask him about old Heinrich Hertz. Moving on in the story. Alright. Now, a man named Nikola Tesla. I would say this dude was on the radio frequencies long before Heinrich Hertz. But they don't want to tell you nothing about Nikola Tesla. Why? Because if they told you what he did, your world wouldn't make sense anymore. And he did it 100 years ago. 100 years ago. Well, let's learn a little bit about Nikola Tesla. And much of Nikola Tesla's discoveries seem to be very shrouded, very clouded. But one of his most notable public inventions, as it were, is the Tesla coil. Tesla coil. A design that is still used today to pick up on radio frequencies and TVs and radios worldwide. You can look it up. They all use the little Tesla coil design. Still do it. So, basically, they're going to tell you in the late 1880s, Heinrich Hertz came up with, he just done discovered the radio. But so, in the year 1891 or 1899, one of them years, Nikola Tesla was in the lab recording on the sensitive instruments and got some cosmic radio waves, which means basically in 1891, a few years after the radio was so-called discovered by Heinrich Hertz, Nikola Tesla is saying he's getting radio waves from space. he received, well, this is what Nikola Tesla said. He received some extraterrestrial message back in the 1890s or something like that. So, what's going on with that? Nikola Tesla is over here talking to some space stuff like 3 years after Heinrich Hertz just discovered radio. Well, it seems like if one guy is using radio through space and one guy is using radio through, 5 feet away, and he just discovered it, one guy understands a lot more of it than one guy. But they'll tell you the same thing about Nikola Tesla as they'll tell you the same thing about Heinrich Hertz. In reality, this fake history they've given us is quite retarded. It exposes itself. You're telling me Heinrich Hertz created radio in 1888 or something like that, but in 1891, Nikola Tesla is getting radio signals, so meaning he has already equipment that receives radio signals and transcribes it in some way, whether audible or some little seismic pencil back and forth on the paper type degree. Who knows what we got here? Maybe both. The guy was simply Nikola Tesla. But in 1891, and this is actually relatively early in his career, as he was Nikola Tesla was probably only about in his upper 30s at this point when he did this experiment, upper 30s. And the man lived to be in his 90s. And I mean, in his too much, we'll have to revisit. But so radio waves, getting back to them radio frequencies, we're gonna give you the basics. Basically, the basics. We're gonna say it's gonna be the basics. It may not be basically, but so we already got to that. The real question is, how did Tesla know so much about radio? How was he just some genius who, he was so darn smart? Well, that boy Nikola. I mean, it's the same thing with Elon. I feel like they're relatives. Nikola Tesla and Elon Musk are of the same bloodline. But moving forward. Oh, here we go. So, basically, where did Nikola Tesla get all of his theories from, his information, his, inspiration to cast the hypotheses that he did, to perform the experiments that he performed that resulted in the results of the results? Basically the basics. Nikola Tesla was reading a little something called the Vedas. Well, he was reading the Vedas, and we're going to ask, what was the Vedas? Well, we got a little quote, and we've had quotes. Well, I've been mixing some quotes in. The other ones were just kind of, I rushed them. But these, we got this one from ancienthebrew.com. And this says the description: the RG Veda, the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, and the Puranas are some of the ancient Indian texts written in Sanskrit. These texts give surprisingly detailed accounts of airships called vimanas. Detailed descriptions of the ship's construction is given by using words which translate as graphite rod, copper coils. So already in the Vimanas, we're talking about coils. Oh, and Tesla's, he done in some coils. And even if we go up to Heinrich Hertz, it says he had a coil on one end. So all this stuff about coils is here in ancient Indian texts called the Vedas, in which the different books of the Vedas are what I read before: the Mahabharata, the Ramayana, the Puranas, and some of the Indian texts written in Sanskrit. Talking about coils. Let's carry on. Crystal indicators, vibrating spheres, stable angles. The texts include details on anti-gravity, invisibility, photography, weapons, and interplanetary travel. That is stuff from our own Earth. That's stuff from our own Earth that we have on our planet. Tesla understood, and this is from TeslaSociety.com, a quote, very interesting. Tesla understood the Sanskrit terminology and philosophy and found that it was a good means to describe the physical mechanisms of the universe as seen through his eyes. It would behoove those who would attempt to understand the science behind the inventions of Nikola Tesla to study Sanskrit and Vedic philosophy. And this is from TeslaSociety.com, so they're telling you this was a introduction to a um, very interesting article, which is on TeslaSociety.com. I'm sure you can find it. But and whilst we have some more quotes from it, I believe, but very interesting, and they tell you right there that Tesla was all about the dying Sanskrits, and he had a very good friend who taught a lot of yoga and other stuff. I mean, he was some very important Indian sage who came over and was teaching America all this stuff. And Tesla, whoopsie, happened to be located in America at the same time. So very interesting, very interesting. Tesla got his stuff from the Vedas. The Vedas. What are the Vedas? Well, I'll tell you, the Vedas are written, and see, they were basically the oral legends of the people of India, maybe even Tibet, those high mountains, even going into, can't recall their exact name, but the blue skinned, godlike individuals of their legends of the Himalayas type individuals. The Vedas, and so basically it was all the Indian oral legends that were passed down, and even anciently too. This man Veda Vyasa recorded it in an ancient text called the Vedas, which I guess are named after himself. But the Vedas, translated as knowledge in Sanskrit, maybe he changed his name, might look into the same, are a collection of hymns presenting key Hindu teachings regarding the divine. That's what it says, what they would say to be the divine. Deemed eternal truths, the Vedas were passed down via oral tradition for thousands of years before Veda Vyasa is believed to have systemized them. Who were the divine, and how did they have such knowledge? Who were they? Well, we'll get to a passage that is very interesting, and I believe it boils down the question of, if the Indians have these godlike individuals that can perform godlike tasks and have godlike knowledge, and so does basically every other geographic area on Earth has their own stories of their own people telling a parallel tale of a beings in the before time that taught their ancestors crazy things. And I'll go to a passage in the book of Enoch, book 1, Enoch 8, chapter 8, verses 1 through 2. And these are fallen angels. These are angels who went bad. These are what we would perceive to be godlike beings who can perform godlike tasks, knowing godlike things, teaching humanity things that. And this is where, in the very first, it says, and it's recorded, maybe the most ancient of tales in the book of Enoch, of how knowledge was passed down to humans after God created us in sinful ways, making war and making evil upon the earth, which didn't have a need to be. But obviously, the devil and at that time his newfound cronies, the fallen angels, who were one of the same in many ways possibly different, but not many ways. Enoch 1 through 2, and Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. 2. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Semjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Amars, the solving of enchantments. Baraquil taught astrology. Kokabeel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. And Arkiel, the signs of the earth. Shemziel, the signs of the sun. And Sariel, the course of the moon. And as many perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. And what does it say? As many perished, because they taught them all this stuff. I mean, boiled down, the same stuff that's going on today, the same stuff that's a little mind-blowing. How can people control so many people? Was taught. How can things control so many people? Bracelets and ornaments. Where did this come from? It's ancient brainwashing, but also knowing, of course, what a human is. And how would they know that? They saw the creation of us. Okay? They were up there with God Almighty when it happened. And whether they were, who knows, whether they were mad about that or whether they were mad about something else, they fell, they disagreed with God. And, honestly, they didn't, ultimately, they regret it. I feel like they all regretted it. In the book of Enoch goes to tell how they instantly regretted it. How they didn't even really know that doing this would eternally lock them out from heaven. But as the beings that they were and the decisions that they made, they were eternally locked out from heaven and doomed to a punishment that very well every human could also have place in if you do not truly find my good friend Jesus Christ, who died for all of our sins and truly is the salvation for all humanity on earth, and freely gives it, freely offers it, is the cure to all your anxieties, is the cure to any ailment you face. Look to him. Just if you don't even know, look to the gospel of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and just read those books. If you look at the Bible and say, oh, where do I need to look? It's such a big book. I agree with you. Where should you look first? You should look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Alrighty, moving on. Back to the boy, General Patton. The man himself, General Patton. Alright. Last time we kind of got, we probably need to have an intro for General Patton. We'll do some tank stuff, and we'll, some explosions, and we'll do some excerpts from Band of Brothers. We'll just do the whole thing up, and it'll be quite impressive. But we're just gonna get back to General Patton, because I'm trying to find out what happened to General Patton. Why did Patton get killed? What, my boy Patty? General Patton, Georgie. And so these are some of the quotes of General Patton. And he, the modern idiots would say, oh, General Patton was a controversial man. Well, General Patton would say he spoke to the troops, He spoke to the dogs. He spoke to the boys on the front line. He really did. So we're going to read some of the quotes from General Patton, and, whether anyone would say what they'd say about him, we're just going to read some of the quotes from the general. Here we are. Okay. Here's just a little intro. This was actually taken from a website or something like that. While some officers disapproved of the curse words and vulgar epithets of sprinkled throughout the speech, so basically he gave a speech, and we got better quotes, but this one was a good opening one. And this was his opening statement to this speech, and I guess he said this speech 2 times, but the first time he opened it like this, and the second time he didn't. But he said, and now I want you to remember that no bastard ever wanted a war dying for his country. You won it by making the other poor dumb bastards die for his country. And I don't know if he said that to some kind of political people or some troops, but he said it. He was a polarizing speaker. And here's another quote. When you were here, every one of you were kids. You all admired the champion marble player. Remember, this the 40s. They done had marbles. The fastest runner, the toughest boxer, the big league ball players, and all the all-American football players. Americans love a winner. Americans will not tolerate a loser. Americans despise cowards. Americans play to win all of the time. I wouldn't give a hoot in hell for a man who lost and laughed. That's why Americans have never lost nor will ever lose a war, for the very idea of losing is hateful to an American. Mr. Patton, give it up for him. What an interesting quote. And I like it. Here's another one of Mr. Georgie Patton, General. And this. Yeah, I gotta, doing the show. I mean, I can, you can go over there, and I'll make my way. Watch out, you. Alright. Moving on to the next quote, General Patton. I don't want to get any messages saying I'm holding my position. We are not holding a jing goddamn thing. Let the Germans do that. We are advancing constantly, and we are not interested in holding on to anything except the enemy's balls. We're going to twist his balls and kick the living shit out of him all of the time. Our basic plan of operation is to advance and to keep on advancing regardless of whether we have to go over, under, or through the enemy. He told the inexperienced ones that war is never pretty as well. War is a bloody, killing business. You've got to spill their blood or they will spill yours. Rip them up the belly. Shoot them in their guts. And when shells are hitting the ground all around you and you wipe the dirt off your face and realize instead of the dirt, it's the blood and guts of once was your best friend beside you. You'll know what to do. Goodness. And this is at the end of that same speech. You may be thankful that 20 years from now when you are sitting by your fireplace, when your grandson is on your knee and he asks you what you did in the Great World War II, you won't have to cough, shift him to the other knee and say, well, your granddaddy shoveled shit in Louisiana. No, sir. You can look him straight in the eye and say, son, your granddaddy rode with the Great Third Army and the son of a goddamn bitch named Georgie Patton. Woo! And that does conclude our quotes from Mr. Patton. We'll give some closing thoughts. The man was an interesting speaker, and I'm sure assassinated. Assassinated for beliefs that he held. And this has gone on for too long. Assassinations of what could be possibly better leaders than we have had. People with logic. Either way, who knows? Maybe it doesn't seem like logic. Who knows? I don't even know. But Mr. Patton was a great general, and we mourn his assassination. Signing off on the Dillan Show.